Welcome to the Sandwich Generation podcast, a resource for adults balancing the dual responsibilities of raising children and caring for aging parents. Whether you're helping your parents downsize, explore real estate options, navigating caregiving, or looking for practical advice to help your family thrive, this is the place for you. Join us as we bring you expert insights, heartfelt stories, and actionable items to support you and your family within this unique generation.
Hello there.
Hi. Hello.
All right. So it's just us today, but that's okay, right? We've got some good information.
Yep. I'm pulling up my notes because I'm going to need them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I pull up the visual yet? Or
Sure.
Let's tell our audience what we're talking about first.
I mean, either way is fine, but yeah, we're going to just kind of give a state of real estate snapshot for May of 2025. And this will be specific to our local area here in the central Indy area, but you might find that it's very similar wherever you are. Or it could be vastly different. That's the fun part of real estate. It changes, it fluctuates, and it depends on where you are in the country. So you have to take all of that into consideration, but we thought we'd give a quick little snapshot of what our current market is like here in Indianapolis and how it kind of directly affects seniors and our, our clients that are downsizing. So, yeah.
Yep. We're going to talk about the median home price, inventory, days on market, and what seniors should know about before making a move. All right. So should I pull up the visual we have?
Yeah, let's do it. And we can talk about those numbers.
All right. So we have our median sales price at $320,000, which is actually up. Oh, by the way, we should say the reason why it's June right now and we're talking about May 2025 is because that data is a month behind. So it is data, but we have to take it with a grain of salt because it is a month behind because it's hyper local. Real estate's hyper local, generally speaking. So, yeah. All right. So in central Indiana, median sales price is $320,000, which is up 2.4% from last month.
Yeah, that's good. We'd like to see that number going up. I think every seller likes to see that number going up. So that's encouraging.
And specific to seniors, and I've said this before, it puts seniors in a great equity position because especially if you're a longtime owner, a lot of our clients have lived in their home for 30, 40, 50 years. And they might have their mortgage completely paid off. So as that median sales price goes up, it just puts them in a really, it puts them in a really good equity position with some good proceeds at the end of the sale at closing.
Yeah, I had a couple that closed this past week, seniors who moved to a retirement community, and they received a little over $500,000 at closing on their investment, and they were both ecstatic because they were like, "That's the largest investment deposit we have ever had." So they're thrilled. So
and oftentimes our clients are using the proceeds from their sale to fund their senior living costs or their health care. I mean, the majority of the time, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's encouraging. Let's see. We talked also the closed sales spiked. So that's huge. That's went up a lot.
Yeah. Hello, spring market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's up over 10%, almost 10.5%.
Yeah.
So that means that the market activity is, people are moving in spite of higher interest rates. I mean, I don't think that interest rates are astronomical now. I think we got spoiled with the 2% and the 3%.
I feel like this is norm. Like this is kind of normal,
Yeah.
I guess, so to speak,
Right.
if there is such a thing. But
Quote unquote normal. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that they're moving relatively quickly.
mhm.
Um, unless you're just priced crazy low, we're not going to get 75 offers in within 24 hours like before. But that wasn't a good, healthy market when we were getting that many offers.
Yeah,
In such a short amount of time. That's indicative of an inventory problem, really. So,
yeah. Which in that also, I think people, maybe just weren't thinking rationally when we were in that spin of like multiple
yeah,
offers. You've got to get it in. And, um, I'm sure there are some that are having that buyer's remorse now that they've done that. And they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been so eager. But,
yeah. Well, I mean, it put appraisers in a really tough position because appraisers have to they kind of oversee that so that people aren't making those emotional decisions just based on a lack of inventory. And so back when that was happening, we had a lot of appraisal issues
mhm.
with houses not appraising, and then buyer and seller having to come together
Yeah.
in spite of a low appraisal. So okay, well, speaking of inventory and market competition, that 1.7 months of inventory. Um, I mean, we say in
Yeah.
real estate, if there's less than a 6 month, 6 months of inventory, then we're in a seller's market. If there's more, then we're in a buyer's market. Which I still believe that here in Central Indiana, we are in a central or in a seller's market. Um,
Mhm. Yeah, and what there's little less than 5,000 active listings. That was, probably the
yeah,
end of May that they're looking at. So, yeah, I mean, when you're considering how many people live in the central Indianapolis area and we've got 5,000 homes on the market, that's not a lot. So, competition is still going to be there, but maybe not quite like it was in 2021, 2022. So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
Um, so days on market is 10. That's average. And again, that's central Indiana. We're hyper local here in real estate, which is why, by the way, you need to hire someone local to help you uh, with real estate, because we're digging into real estate, our local real estate, every single day. And so, being a seller who hasn't sold in 30 or 40 years, trying to go it alone would just be, I mean, I would be scared of doing that. Um, so it kind of it's pretty important to seek out a real estate agent that is in the market regularly and looking at this data, just to be priced competitively and also not leave money on the table.
yeah.
I don't know about you, but are you getting like calls and texts and postcards in your mailbox about
Mhm.
um, we buy houses?
Yep.
So we did the calculation on this a couple of years ago. Um, Followed the numbers with people who are selling directly to investors versus listing live on the market with a real estate broker, and it was about $50,000 to $75,000 that people were leaving on the table
Yeah.
by selling to an investor. Because if you think about it, a good investor is really tight on their numbers. They have to be profitable, right? So they're going to lowball and make it seem like, oh, you can push the easy button. You just take whatever you want out of the house and we'll do the rest. Well, they're
Mhm.
leaving money on the table for the property, but also the things
The
inside of the
thing.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to remind someone of that the other day. We were talking about this whole process, and I said, it seems like you're right, the easy button, but when you think about what they're going to turn around and all that stuff that you leave in your house, it's not going in the trash or to donations, like they're going to turn around and sell it and they're going to make the money off of that stuff. So you have to think about that. Like that's money that with just a little bit of pre-planning and work and hiring someone like us, like you can put that money in your pocket instead of letting someone else. So,
or worse, they do just trash it all.
Yes,
and think of, there could be a good amount of money. I just had somebody tell me they got like over $2,000 back from their auction items. So, I mean, $2,000 in the grand scheme of things, but hey, every little bit is important, and we understand that for our clients, that it is going to provide for their health care.
Yeah,
in a lot of cases. So, what else do we want to talk about on that? Days on market?
Days on market. So just making sure that you're, one of the reasons that we do things we do is that, one, it's easier for our clients to not have to be living in the property when it goes on the market. So they're not having to, get in and out when people are coming for showings, that kind of thing. But also, we do a lot of this stuff ahead of time so that they're comfortable, settled in their new space. And because if you're talking about 10 days on the market and then a 30-day close, for them to be able to process doing all the things that they need to do or want to do for a house that they've lived in 30 to 50 years, somewhere in there, it in 40 days is extremely overwhelming. So, just think about that, like 10 days. And then my recent closings have been less than 30 days. So they've been, 24 to 27 days, something like that. So this is a quick thing
once you get the house listed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is, there's several reasons why we want to get our client moved and settled into their new place before we list their house. But that's one of them. You don't want to be dealing with showings, and once it does sell, it's quick. So
yeah.
This is one. Yeah, this is one I really like to talk about too, for seniors specifically, because not all, but most of our clients are moving into senior communities where they're renting. They're not buying. Again, some of them are, but most of them are not. So the beauty of this is that everybody's freaking out about interest rates, but our senior clients, well, there's two things on this. Our senior clients can sell at the highest price they've ever been able to sell their house for. If they've lived in it 30, 40, 50 years, they don't have a mortgage, so they've got a massive amount of equity. And they don't have to worry about an interest rate on the other side when they go to buy, because they're not buying, so the interest rates don't matter to them.
Yeah.
The other thing was the Assumable. And I thought about you when I was going through this about your VA person that you had that had an Assumable. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So most VA loans, well, I say most, maybe all of them, I don't know. I actually not sure on that, but are generally Assumable. And I had a veteran client who had a VA loan, and he was moving into a senior community. So he was not concerned about needing to have another VA loan at some point, because there is something with that. Like once you have one and you let someone else assume it, then you can't, there's like a period that you can't get another one. I would have to double check the numbers on that. But so you're basically signing, saying, yes, I'm not going to come back in 3 months and ask you for another VA loan when I've let someone else assume this one. So that process really, I've had heard lots of nightmare stories from people. Ours was not bad. It was just, it took a little bit longer because you are dealing with having to get that approval for the buyer that's going to assume the loan and kind of go through that process. So it took probably 30 days longer than it would have if it had just been like a traditional lender or cash buyer. So
Yeah.
So that process was, just more tedious as far as like making sure they had all the proper documentation. We'd submitted everything, and then staying on top of them, like calling and checking in every few days. So there was a lot of that, but it worked out really well because that was when interest rates were in the sevens, 7.5, something like that. And the buyer was able to assume that loan at 2.25% or something like that. I mean, it was super low. So
Yeah.
it was in the twos. So everybody was happy in that situation. That guy got a great deal. So, yeah, I think all good things.
Yeah, and it's not just VA loans. I just had a client, I gave them assignment to call their lender and see if their loan was assumable. Not all loans are assumable, but the ones that are, and how that works is that portion of the loan is assumable at that lower rate, but then that buyer has to go and either pay cash for the difference between that loan amount and the purchase price, or get another loan. But it could, depending on how much that assumable loan is, it could really, save someone a good amount of money. If you get a loan on a 2 or 3% interest rate, and then you get that second to pay for the difference between the loan amount that you assumed and the purchase price. Yeah, it could save somebody a good amount of money.
Yep. So active versus sold price range. So this is what you list your property at versus what it actually sells for. And it seems like most activity in our area is between the $200,000 to $400,000 range. So that's kind of average home sale price range that we're seeing, which I feel like that's where most of our clients fall, right?
Yeah. So last year our average sales price was like 363 and some change. So many senior properties fall into this category, which, again, this is where most of the activity is happening, between 200 and 400,000. And if you think about it, you think, where are there more buyers in the higher price market, the $1 million and above market, or are there more buyers in the 2 to 400 range? Well, I mean, there's more buyers in the 2 to 400 range. So, yeah, that our clients, our senior clients, are typically right in that sweet spot, and it's good for to attract the most amount of buyers. And also, do you want to talk about the condition of the property and kind of what our mantra is in terms of deferred maintenance and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think this is something that a couple of my recent listings have been really concerned about, and they both have been really well taken care of homes. Some of them, some of our clients, there is a significant amount of deferred maintenance, but they are, just, it has been a long time since either of them had sold a home, and so they were very much just concerned about every little bitty thing. And I have just continued to express that they don't need to be worried about every nail hole being filled. And like, we will do what we can, the things that are just like super obvious, but there, you don't have to put a ton of sweat and money into getting the home in like this pristine condition that they, for some reason, have in their heads. So, and I keep just reiterating to them that whoever buys this property is going to want to make it their own anyways. And so you could spend a couple $1,000s having the whole house painted on the inside, and somebody's going to come in and paint it a totally different color anyways. So just taking things like that into consideration and kind of talking through it with them, I think is helpful for them. But yeah, this doesn't have to be showroom TV quality ready for the new buyer, because they're gonna do their own changes anyways.
Yeah. And this is like opening a can of worms when we start
Yeah.
doing things like you remove the shag carpet to reveal the pristine wood floors, and now the trim looks outdated
Hmm.
because it's painted whatever pale blue. And so then you paint that, and now the walls and the kitchen cabinets look outdated, and now
They
we've got
look
to
vintage.
redo the whole
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think for, when you're younger, it's nothing really to, I mean, it is, but to have contractors in and out of your house doing work or whatever, it is stressful. But when you're a senior in your 70s or 80s, your health is declining. You are a vulnerable population susceptible to scams.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bigger deal when you start making those changes and updates. So yeah, because we're in such a seller's market, because we have such a shortage of inventory, our senior clients can really take advantage of selling in as is condition.
Mhm.
We'll make the price adjustments based on the condition, how much deferred maintenance there is. That's where our expertise, I think, really come in, because we can estimate what it's going to take for somebody to bring a property up to where
Yeah.
their standards, and then we can work backwards and figure out the best sales price to be competitive based on the condition. So I think yeah, that's good. So don't start doing a bunch of stuff. And another thing on that is you're not going to get back dollar for dollar. So
No.
if you did use that, few $1,000 to repaint or remove carpet or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get back exactly what you put into it. In fact, you're probably not going to,
Yeah.
because um, buyers don't have that same attachment to, well, I just, I got 5 paint estimates and I picked the one I wanted, and then I was here and overseeing the painter and and paying for that invoice. They don't have that attachment to all of what you just did. And so,
Yeah.
and honestly, they don't really care. Not to sound, they don't care.
Yeah.
They are, I told somebody this the other day, buyers are looking through home after home after home, and they're looking for what property offers the most amount of features and benefits for the least amount of money.
Mhm.
And so that's how they're making their decision. It's much like buying anything.
Mhm.
When you go to buy a new TV or whatever, you're looking for the most amount of features and benefits for the lowest price. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Well,
It becomes a snowball effect, and no one needs that when you're trying to sell
no,
your house, of having to just keep going, keep going. So, yeah,
no.
yeah. Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, talking about preparing for the next chapter, the next steps. What uh, options there are for people that are downsizing, that kind of thing. And I mean, I feel like we've had a pretty wide variety recently from our clients, people that are moving across the country, and some that are just moving into independent living or assisted living, or I had a couple back in November that built their own smaller property, and 1 story, not having to deal with stairs, that kind of thing. So there's so many options for people as far as uh, deciding what the next chapter looks like for them.
Yeah, I think we could probably do a whole podcast on the different types of low maintenance living or just downsizing options.
Yeah.
And
There's
we have a pretty good array of different scenarios.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important for people to kind of start, if this is something that's on your mind, or will probably be the next chapter, it's good to start doing your research and figuring out what your options are, what communities you like or don't like. I know a lot of the communities around us, some of the higher end communities, have pretty significant wait list. So
Yeah, the
uh,
good ones do. I mean, it makes sense. If it's a good community, everyone wants to move there. So
yeah,
there's going to be a wait list. Yeah.
yeah. Yep. And I have a couple that I just moved to a community last week, and they had been on the wait list for a while, and they had said no to one other property that came available within the community. And then this one came available, and they're like, we feel like we may not be
Yeah.
totally ready to do this, but the next time that we're going to have this opportunity could be another 12 months, and we don't want to risk it. So we're going in, we're going to do it. So, it never hurts to see what options there are and check out Waitlists and, just make yourself familiar.
And I think that is something that is not necessarily hyper local.
Yeah.
The statistics regarding the senior housing crisis that is upon us is a national thing. So that piece is not, I mean, that could go for whether you live in central Indiana or in another state. There are wait lists for senior communities, or if you're building, because builders have started to get on board with the low maintenance housing. There's still a build time, about 6 months or so.
Yeah.
From the time that you pick your lot, pick your design, your floor plan, pick your the finishes, all of that, it's about a 6-month build time. So unless you're buying one that's already existing. So yeah. What do you think about the rest of 2025? This is a controversial topic because we have some people in some states saying it's all going to fall. We're entering into a buyer's market. The market's going to crash, all of this. And so take this with a grain of salt. None of us have a crystal ball. We can't predict what's going to happen. And it's been a seller's market for a really long time.
I don't foresee things in our area changing that much through the rest of the year. Part of that's just where we are. We're Midwest people. People don't make crazy, rash decisions. Like, things stay pretty consistent. And even in those fluctuations, across the country where you see like it flip drastically from sellers to buyers market, I don't feel like Indianapolis is that way. It's never been like a huge flip here. We stay pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
We were talking about that before we came on. We don't have high highs and low lows. I think we'll feel what other parts of the country are feeling, just not as drastically. Like in 2008, 9, 10, when things were, it really was a buyer's market. Yeah, we felt that a little bit. I did a lot of short sales back then, but I think its inventory is tight in all regards, in the housing market, residential living, in senior communities. And I have seen initiatives to help the housing inventory, I guess, crisis, if you want to call it that, in terms of there's a lot of affordable housing initiatives in central Indiana in particular that are great for first-time home buyers. A lot of, I think it's I'm going to get my generations mixed up, but thank goodness my kids don't watch this, so they won't make fun of me. I think it's millennials are now home buyers.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the inventory crunch that we have, because seniors, more than ever, I think the statistic from AARP is that 90% of seniors want to age in place. So they're aging in their place, in their home longer. Eventually, some of them do end up moving to senior communities or some other, low maintenance living situation, whether they move in with families or not. But we have baby boomers on this side, 11,000 retiring every single day. 90% of them want to age in place. And then we have millennials over here entering into the buyer's market, which is causing a bit of a crunch in terms of inventory. So I think when we talk about seniors aging in place, which is a whole other conversation, but I don't think we've ever had somebody that we moved into a senior community say, I wish I didn't do this. In fact, most of them say, I wish I would have done this sooner.
Yep.
Do you agree?
Yep. That's definitely the consensus. They wish they hadn't waited so long to do it. So
yeah, for a variety of reasons, but just being able to enjoy their time, to not make the process so stressful when their health is declining, the wait list, the crunch of inventory, all of that. So, well, what do we want to say? Share this podcast with somebody in Central Indiana who might be thinking about making a move, specifically seniors. Be sure to like, follow, comment. We are trying to grow this kind of in a grassroots effort. We're not paying for advertising, but we're building a following, which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do free consults with people that are might be interested or just want to hear what their home might be worth. So, and more about our process. So yeah, absolutely. Share this with somebody, yourself or loved ones, friends that you feel like might be leaning towards that next chapter, and we would be happy to sit down and talk with them. So, yeah.
All righty. Well, good chat.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.